Hey, hello. Welcome to another edition of Matner's Movie Musings. I haven't made one of these videos in quite a long time. I was hoping to wait until I'd gotten back to the theater, but still haven't been able to make it there yet, even though it's been open. Um, but I hope to very soon. Plan on with the summer movie season, hopefully kicking back into gear. I plan on hitting definitely the big movies like Black Widow, Fast and Furious 9, things like that. However, this episode I just wanted to. I finally saw some movies I really felt passionately enough to talk about. Not that there haven't been several good movies that I've seen. There were a lot of good Oscar movies and a lot of good other movies, but really, I've been meaning to make this video for a while. Um, Basically, especially in reference to the Justice League, the Zack Snyder cut. That's one of the movies we'll be discussing, as well as Godzilla versus Kong and Mortal Kombat and Without Remorse. As you can see, most of them are HBO Now or HBO Max movies, which also were released in the theaters. Which I had intentions to go see Godzilla versus Kong in the theater, but just wasn't able to do it. But with my big 70-inch screen TV and surround sound system, I mean, it wasn't the same by no means, but I still felt I was able to enjoy the movie as well as I could without being in an actual theater. But enough with all of that. So let's go ahead and get started here. Talking about the Justice League, um, which there's a lot to cover here. I guess starting with the just DC Universe movies in general. I do want to say that I am a fan. I haven't hated any of them, and I definitely like them a lot more than most. Um, I thought Man of Steel, although overblown, probably the worst Superman movie um, ever. I did feel it was still a decent movie for what it was. I mean, nothing's going to top the original Superman the movie. But as far as updating it and with the special effects and everything, I thought it was cool to see Krypton um, done that way, and of course the acting. Russell Crowe as Kal-El's father Jor-El, and Kevin Costner as his Earth adopted father, and Diane Lane, and of course Henry Cavill as Superman. Again, probably my least favorite Superman, including all the TV incarnations. I mean, Dean Cain's probably up there just because that was a little campy, um, but again, for what it was, I felt his performance, and I really liked him. I thought he was, very, very good for what that show was supposed to be. So, so yeah, I guess if I had to list them, Henry Cavill would probably most definitely be probably. Well, I don't want to say most definitely, but it would be close. But I would say it'd probably be my least favorite. But either way, but in the movies, definitely my least favorite. Although I still I think he makes a good Superman. I just think Brandon Routh was better. I wish that he had been able to carry on after Superman Returns, and I wish that kind of storyline had kind of continued. But either way, again, stick with what we're talking about here. Um, I liked Man of Steel. I enjoyed Batman v Superman. I thought that was, again, not a great movie, but it was very entertaining. I enjoyed seeing, um, you know, Batman and Superman, as well as Wonder Woman, all together. It was again, it wouldn't have been my choice as far as a storyline to follow, as far as bringing those characters together. And I feel like it was a little rushed, but we'll get to that as far as the whole Justice League thing. But um, again, and honestly, the movie that did get the most praise, Wonder Woman, I felt was the least satisfying of them. I felt it was a little more standard. It felt very similar to Marvel's Captain America, the First Avenger, which again, partly because of the timeline, it was a similar, 1940s World War II situation. But even still, it just, I mean, again, I liked it. I thought it was a good movie. I just didn't understand why it was getting so much praise and these other movies didn't. Whereas like Batman v Superman, there was a lot that I hadn't seen before. Again, I'm not saying it was a great movie. There was a lot of, it was chaotic, and there's a lot of things to pick apart there. But again, we're not reviewing that movie. But again, just Wonder Woman, while structurally better, I suppose, I just didn't feel the storyline was all that great. I felt like it was, been here, done that. And uh, yeah, so like I said, I enjoyed it, but um, I feel like it was a bit overrated. But again, I mean, I like them all. I think they were all great. Getting to Justice League, the original theatrical version of Justice League, I felt was rushed. I felt like it was DC trying to catch up with Marvel, who had already done the footwork and made several there were Iron Mans and Thor movies and Captain America, creating those characters individually before bringing them all together. Whereas, short of Superman and Batman in previous incarnations, there really wasn't any character developed on any of the characters. I mean, yeah, Wonder Woman had her movie, I guess. I suppose she was actually the most developed and most understood in this incarnation because, again, Ben Affleck had just been introduced in the previous, in Batman v Superman. And again, he brought a lot of the old canon with him. I feel like, I don't feel like we need another origin story on Batman. But again, this version, the older, more solemn, more reserved Batman wasn't quite cemented yet. And again, and same with Superman, he had the one, with two movies, I suppose. And I guess that was enough. I guess we really did get Superman. So Superman and Wonder Woman, I guess, were the most. And then, we got a little bit of Batman in Batman v Superman, and I suppose that was enough. But then we've got Aquaman, Cyborg, and Flash, none of which, other than the short little cameo in Batman v Superman, we had not seen these characters yet. And rather than take the time, strangely, the movie really focuses on Wonder Woman and Batman very early on, because we know them, because they've set them in this world already. So then these other characters just get thrown in, and we get a little bit of backstory on each, but not enough. I mean, especially Cyborg, who we've never seen before, who most people don't even know is part of the Justice League. There was no real setup. He just, we just quickly understood his father created him. He died. His father brought him back. But there really wasn't any. We had no idea, who this character was. But prior to Cyborg, there was no reason to care about him or anything like that. And really, same with Flash. I mean, we're familiar with Flash. So I mean, if you're familiar with these characters and you're able to bring something to them, then Justice League probably felt a little more solid. Which I mean, I was one of those people who was familiar with these people, but still, they're just all thrown together, and all of a sudden, and the mission that they're supposed to go on, this to defeat, can't even remember his name. I'm gonna get a lot of flack for that, but the bad guy is very generic bad guy. He's some alien creature, looks a lot like Thanos, so that makes it even more like again, been here, done that, and so there really just wasn't any conflict there. There really wasn't any reason to, there wasn't enough reason to hate the bad guy, and there wasn't enough reason to root for the good guys. Other than that's just how these movies work. But again, I enjoyed it. I thought it was well done. I liked the characters. I liked the action. I thought it was a well put together story. I just felt like the movie itself was rushed into production, and then the whole movie experience itself felt very rushed. It was just like, here's this, here's this, here's this, we got to get to this battle. We've got to get all these characters in order. We got to get all this. There was a lot to do in a short amount of time, and I don't feel like that was done successfully. But again, I thought it was a good movie. And I know I've got more negatives than positives to say about it, and I don't really have a lot of backing that up. I just felt like the actors and the characters carried the movie, despite the villain, despite all everything I've already mentioned. So let's go ahead and I apologize. Let's get on to the Zack Snyder cut, which is almost too long. I complain about the other one being too short and too rushed. Again, there's a lot of things that are still, it would have been nice to have, the Aquaman, but now we've seen Aquaman, so we kind of bring that to it. So that's a little bit better, even though this takes place before the Aquaman movie. And so either way, okay. So the movie is a little too long. At 4 hours, I feel like 3 hours is probably the longest any movie needs to be. But at the same time, short of them being able to, go back in time and do origin stories, in their own movies before that, I'm fine with the 4 hour movie. I enjoyed it. The Cyborg, it gets a lot more focus. He's almost the central character now, which I love. I love that, it's almost his story now. We get a lot more in depth into who he is, what's going on. The relationship with him and his father is really fleshed out. Flash and his father, and just Flash in general, is really developed more. Again, not to the extent that we really want, but again, I know they're making a Flash movie, and I feel like it's a perfect way to kind of probably what they're going to do, segue into that from this. And I really can't assume what DC is going to do from here. I don't know if they're going to pick up from anything, because this movie does leave a lot to be desired as far as possible futures for these characters, and I really don't know what DC is going to do. But again, just focusing on this movie, I love how it opens the DC world up, and it really, even if they don't go any further, it really feels like a comic book movie, like an old-fashioned comic book movie, not like a Marvel movie. Which is definitely elevated the level, but at the same time, almost too much. It almost took all the fun out of it. Now, I love the Marvel movies. I love the Avengers movies. They're some of my favorite movies. Don't get me wrong. But again, they're very self-serious. They're very wrapped up in their own little, universe. I like the way DC is kind of a little more campy, a little more playful, a little more fun in that sense. But again, I'm getting distracted here. So let's get back to the movie itself. I feel like the villains are still, obviously it's the same villain. There's a little more backstory. There's a little more understanding of who this character is. And there's even another villain added to it. But again, none of that really matters. Like, he might as well be called generic villain. Again, I can't remember his name, even though he's from the comics, and I know who he is. I'm familiar with. It escapes me because, I can only think of him as Thanos. That just sticks in my mind as lesser Thanos. Like it just doesn't have. That's the one thing that I feel like Marvel did a great job of with their villains. Creating really in-depth villains that weren't just black and white, weren't just evil for evil's sake. You got Loki, you've got Thanos, you've got the Winter Soldier with Robert Redford's character, and the Winter Soldier himself. Hydra, all these characters are, you can, I don't want to say sympathize or empathize, but you can definitely understand where they're coming from. There's definitely a humanistic quality, regardless of how alien they are, which I do appreciate that um, progress in the genre. Whereas I feel like this one is definitely uh, worse for just not having a strong villain. Um, but but anyways, but other than that, I thought everything else was good. I really, the final action scene is a lot more extended. It's a lot more in depth. The film, certainly, you can't say the film feels rushed at 4 hours. So you got that. Um, Sorry, my cat just came in here and distracted me for a moment, but she's so hungry for attention right now. Um, anyway, so where was I? Okay, yeah. So I feel like, okay. So that's probably enough with the Justice League. Like I said, in conclusion, basically, the it's a much better film. It's almost a great movie. It's not quite up there with the Avengers. Again, I just don't feel like it could be, because I don't think DC took the time to really make that happen. But um, you do have stronger characters. You do have a stronger story. There's a lot more character development and story development that is able to really make the film stronger and more coherent. And short of, again, the villain and a stronger conflict, the film was still great. And it does really make the battle between good and evil more suspenseful. You don't really feel like, oh, they're gonna get together, and then when they finally do, they're gonna beat the guy. Like, there's a lot more to it. It's a lot more. Oh my goodness, Jasmine. It's a lot more. I lost my train of thought once again. But anyways, it's it's a lot more complicated, as far as their mission and how they're gonna defeat the bad guy and all that. So um, so anyway, long story short, regardless of whether you're a fan of the original Justice League or not, I do recommend checking out the new one. I feel like it's the best of what it could be. I give it 4.5 out of 5 stars, and I've actually watched it twice, and would happily watch it again. It's 4 hour length. It really doesn't feel that long. Whereas the 2 hour version, almost in a weird way, is rushed and short as it feels in some senses. It also just it feels longer, because you're just kind of just sitting back waiting for things to happen. And where in this one, you really get involved, you're really getting into what's going on. And at least for me, especially the second time I watched it, it really kind of flew by. So I definitely recommend checking that out. Okay, so on to, and I promise you I will be a lot more shorter on these. There was just a lot I felt I wanted to go over for that one. But anyways, moving on to Godzilla versus Kong. I have to say I'm really not a fan of these movies. I never have been. King Kong, yeah, King Kong, yes. Godzilla, even the original, which is supposed to be this classic, it feels like an overrated B movie. Like, yeah, I mean, it's okay. It's entertaining, but there's no heart. There's no soul to it. It's very just, here's these Japanese characters, and then there's this American character who actually is brought in to a different version. Depends on what version you're talking about, but really either way, I mean, I don't feel like anyone is better. I feel like if you're a purist, of course, you want just the Japanese version. But even with Raymond Burr brought in, I don't feel like he worsens or betters the movie. He just makes it, I guess, more, obviously appealing to American audiences. So we've got a dog in the fight, I guess. Um, but really, either way, it's just, a bunch of people running from this monster that doesn't look very scary, doesn't look very, whatever. There's no, there, at least we got with King Kong, even the original, there was some emotion there. There was some, which again, I mean, it's just the difference of a lizard and an ape. I mean, you've got a lot more humanistic qualities. You've got, you can, with the eyes and the mouth, you can really just get a lot more, emotion out of that character. So King Kong, you really felt for that character. There was, more, there was just the heart and soul of that, within that character that we could, understand and relate to, and regardless of that, just the story itself, which was, about this beast who was, forced to come, he didn't choose to be there. He was forced to be there. And then, he feels affection for this woman, and then she feels sad for him being in captivity, even though she's scared of him. There's a lot going on in King Kong that Godzilla just doesn't even come close to touching. It's just a very B level, Z level, almost, monster movie. And again, I mean, I guess it's okay for what it is. And again, I don't hate the movie. I don't, whatever. I've never really gotten into them. I've only seen the original. I haven't gotten into all the Godzilla verses or anything. I mean, I've seen some of the reincarnations, Godzilla 1985, and which actually I like better just for its campy cheesiness, which I just feel like that's at least it's almost knows how ridiculous it is, and now it just kind of plays off of that, even though it's a horrible movie, and brings back Raymond Burr for no reason other than just to try to connect the two, I guess. Anyways, and then of course, there was the 1998 Godzilla, which again, just, I mean, I feel about it about the same way as I feel about the original. I mean, it was okay. It was a little more, cool or whatever, seeing, because the special effects are better. So, but I almost feel like it went the other way. It tried to be more serious, with the Matthew Broderick, this romance going on, and then I don't know. I that movie, and again, I'm not going to get into details. I just feel like it almost went the other way, trying to make Godzilla into this more epic. Like obviously the guys that did Independence Day tried to do this, so they were almost felt obligated to make a similar, epic kind of thing. And I just feel like they should have went more 1985, Godzilla 1985, and made it a little more playful, a little more fun. And it was just all, the whole time it was all rainy, and just, you hardly got to see the creature. And then when you finally did, it was kind of cool. But again, that was it. I mean, you saw the creature, and then what? There was just a lot of stomping and running around and whatever. Anyways, and then we get to the 2014 incarnation, which is clearly the best. I liked it. I enjoyed it. It was a good movie. But again, I mean, who cares? Like, I didn't, I liked it, and I moved on, like I didn't really think anything of it. I liked how it brought in other creatures, and I thought that was a good way to go, because other than, what are you going to do? You got this big Godzilla versus humans, and with that, there's really nothing to do. And then, so at least they brought in other creatures, and they did kind of make Godzilla a sympathetic character, by doing that. Because these other creatures were worse, and then, you got Godzilla, who almost becomes a friend to the humans. It's almost like not nowhere near the level of King Kong, but still, you if you didn't care about the creature, you did root for him in this one a little bit, and so that was progress, I suppose. And then you've got anyway, so then we move on to the the Godzilla King of the Monsters, which is the same title as the original. But anyways, which is a sequel to the Godzilla, which once again, it's pretty much the same story. You've got Godzilla going after this ultimate monster that, whatever, and the human characters really take over in that movie. And again, I enjoyed it, but not as much as the other Godzilla. I mean, it's the second best Godzilla movie, but That's what's that saying? I mean, not much. So, and I don't even want to talk about that because to me that was really just a waste of time. We saw Godzilla all we needed to see in the other one. And then Kong. We got to talk about Kong, Skull Island, which I loved. I thought I say I loved it. I mean, I still don't feel like it was a great movie, but it was pretty close. I mean, it was. I don't know. Again, King Kong is it's just I suppose it's the fact that apes and humans are so close in biological whatever that it's easier to relate to them, but again, just the way they make him into this sympathetic creature, and that he's the he's almost the victim in the story. Like humans have invaded his territory. Humans are the reason that these other creatures have now surfaced, which he has done a good job of keeping down and not having to deal with. And so then you've got humans trying to take out Kong, and then you've also got these other creatures. So there's a lot going on. Which just on its own, it just makes for better entertainment. But it was also a very well made movie. I thought it really took King Kong, in a modern direction, in a new direction that we hadn't seen before. After several incarnations of the original Kong, with him climbing the tower and the female and all that stuff. This really gave, to me, honestly, was probably the most King Kong, centric movie. This was his shining moment, where he wasn't so much overshadowed by the humans. So all that brings us to Godzilla versus Kong, which is really the fourth in the series, with two Godzilla movies and then Kong before it. And this is my favorite out of all of them. As far as not the original King Kongs, but just out of these, whatever. Just because, I mean, how can you not just love the title alone lets you know exactly what it is. If you don't want to see that, then don't go. But it's everything that you could possibly imagine it being in a movie structure, short of it just literally being those two fighting for 2 hours. It does a good job of setting up both characters and bringing them together, and they fight a few times. It's not just one. Yes, Jasmine, I know. There's not just one battle, there's a few, but it's also, I don't want to give too much away, but there's a lot more to it. There's other villains besides, not that they're villains, but there's other conflicts besides that conflict. And so, you've got Godzilla battling other things, Kong battling other things, and then of course there's the human stories. You've got two separate human stories going on. You've got these younger people. You've got this cast of young kids, doing their thing, and then you got some older, scientific, professional adults doing their thing, and so, and I like that that they did that, not just to appeal to a wider audience, but just because then you've got the different perspectives, as far as you've got these scientific brainiacs, and then you've got these more. You got basically you've got the brain driven and you got the heart driven, and so I also appreciated how that it brings a lot to the story, that otherwise if you just had one through line of humans, I don't feel the impact would have been there either. So there's a lot going on, but it's the title pretty much explains it all. That's the movie you're going to see, then that's the movie you'll get, as Godzilla versus Kong. And I'm sure there'll be people that say there isn't enough Godzilla versus Kong, but again, I mean, you can't really expect to have actually seen 2 hours of just those two fighting. I mean, that's not really a movie. That's just celebrity deathmatch. So yeah. Again, I liked it for what it is. It's immensely entertaining, a lot of fun. I wished I had seen it in theaters, because I know I would have enjoyed it even more. But still, I give it 4.5 out of 5. Again, based on spectacle alone and just pure entertainment. I really that's probably gonna haunt me because it's probably not a 4.5 star movie, but for what it is, and that's the way I look at movies. You just got to rate them for what they are and what they intend to do. Of course, it's nowhere near some serious movie. Um, but again, if you want to see you know Godzilla versus King Kong, then you're gonna get that in this movie. Anyways, so moving on. Next up is Mortal Kombat. Um, Another remake, reincarnation, whatever you want to call it, reimagining, whatever. And again, I was a fan of the 1995 version. I felt it, at the time, it fit where the game was in technology and in oh my goodness, yes, you can see yourself in the camera. And just as where movies where action movies, where all that stuff was, it really just fit the time. And of course, I was 14 at the time watching it in the theater, so of course I loved it. And again today, I did rewatch it recently. I After watching the new one, and it still holds up. I like it better than the new one. Um, just again for what it was trying to do and for what it did. Given you know, Mortal Kombat was I think there was two or maybe three incarnations of the game, so there really wasn't a lot of the structure of the universe really came after that. Um, and so especially where video game movies were at the time, it definitely was the best. I mean, if you're going to compare it to Street Fighter or which actually I like a little bit, but Double Dragon, which again I like a little bit, and Super Mario Bros, which I kind of like a little bit. But again, if you're comparing them, Mortal Kombat was really the only good, or at least as close to good video game movie that came out in the 90s, or at least in that that early 90s. So anyway, so the new one, my expectations were high but not too high, because again it's Mortal Kombat. It's not like I'm expecting greatness. I do feel like it's a little disappointing, in the sense that I think it takes itself a little too seriously. It almost feels like a little like too mythological, like it's trying to be too just a little too serious in that sense. But at the same time, I liked it. Yeah, it has a lot of pleasing moments for the fans. It's there's some great action sequences. There's a lot better character development in this one. We really get a sense of the world, and what that is. I do and this gets into something we'll touch a little bit more on the next movie, but I'm really getting tired of movies that just feel like a setup for a sequel, that really just get like they're like every movie they feel like they have to start a franchise. And I hate that, feel like it's being forced, like especially because like most of them we never get to see the second one. So why not just give us that movie that you want to give us? Why do you waste our time setting this up for the sequel when you could just give us that now? Because most successful franchises aren't forged. They happen naturally. Back to the Future, Matrix, Alien, any of them. Karate Kid, Indiana Jones. None of them were, even Star Wars, which George Lucas supposedly said, which I know the original three he'd planned. I guess that's the exception. But again, I really don't think he had mapped that much out. Like he had some ideas that he wasn't able to make in the first one. He really could, due to budget and technology restraints or constraints. At the time, he really, that was the best movie he could make. So he had to kind of base things down a little bit. And then because it was a success, he had more money, and as time went by, the technology got better. So he was able to make movies, that were better. So either way, like even with Star Wars, you got a movie that was um, due to the success of that. You've got to really focus on that movie just being of itself. So, anyways, and again, I guess I touched that a little more now than I meant to, but we'll get to that a little more in the next movie, because it's a lot more guilty of it. But still, I feel like the Mortal Kombat, because there really isn't a tournament in this movie. It's and again, I'm not going to get too much into plot because they're really it's very thin. Like there is just a lot of fighting and a lot of characters. Good guys, bad guys. And if you're not familiar with the Mortal Kombat series, which I'm not hugely into, I played the game a lot when I was younger. Haven't played it in years, but I am familiar with the main characters. There were a few characters in this movie that I didn't know, but the movie does fine. Just you understand who these characters are and what they are and what they're all about. I do feel like the whole with learning their powers took a little long, and like I said, that's all setting up these characters for like a future. And I just feel like I wanted this movie. I wanted to see this movie. Like, don't just give me all this stuff for a future. Entry, like I just, anyways, I've said enough about that. So, anyways, but still, as what it is, I enjoyed it. I felt like it was fun. Again, seeing these characters and the way that they did develop them, and I do feel like it did lack a certain amount of conflict, but I do like the overall story of the ancient warrior who's comes back and essentially and the Scorpion Sub-Zero, of course that's what everybody wants to see, and that's very pleasing. So we do get a lot of moments. There is a lot of downtime. I do feel like it drags a little bit. Again, I felt like this movie, probably they could have condensed it into an hour and then given us more in the back end that was really because this movie is a lot more character driven than it needs to be. These aren't, I mean, if you think like movies like Superman and that take too long, I mean, to me these aren't even up to that level. And I'm not saying video games are as good as comic books. So I'm getting that argument. I'm just saying this particular video game, which is two people battling, which is all the video game is. I know there's a little more to it in the background, but that's essentially what you do when you play the game. You just fight. So for that kind of thing, I really don't feel like there's a lot of characters that we need to really get to know or understand. We just need to understand the universe. We need to understand the rules, and then get on with the story. And introduce a few characters, let us know who they are and what they represent, but then let's get on with it. And this movie just takes a lot of time just talking. There's a lot of talking. There's a lot of sitting. There's a lot of just a lot of nonsense. Just a lot, a lot of setup. So. What could have been a lot better movie, I do feel drags on. I give it 3.5 out of 5. And I mean, there were moments that I just, I actually cheered, like when Scorpion, like finally, whatever. And again, I don't want to give too much away because that, I wasn't sure when that was going to come and whatever. So again, I don't want to give it away. I'm sure you'll assume it's there, but either way, that like there's a few moments where you're just like, yes, that's what I wanted to see, but sadly, just not enough. And again, they don't come until way too late in the movie. The movie just takes a long time getting started. Short of actually, the opening scene is fantastic, and there's a few more in between. But honestly, there's a lot of downtime. There's a lot more downtime in between battles and in between crowd pleasing moments. than there needs to be, and then there should be. So I'd say there's a handful of really great moments, but there's a lot more of just twiddling your thumbs and just waiting for something to happen. But anyway, so moving on, the last movie I want to talk about is Without Remorse, with the new Tom Clancy thriller. Which is basically just cashing in on the Jack Ryan series that's really hot right now on Amazon. which is a really great show. Definitely highly recommend that. Without Remorse is a it pales in comparison. It's a generic action movie. I liked Michael B. Jordan. I liked the character. I liked what they did with the character. I've never read the book. I don't care how closely it goes to the book. I know it's a lot differently. I'm familiar with the plot of the book, just on research I did before watching the movie. Um, and honestly, like reading the plot of the book, I don't feel like I wanted to see that movie. It's just unfortunate that this movie didn't turn out to be one I really needed to see either. Um, I mean, I don't know how many movies we've seen where the hero's family dies and he has to go out and get revenge. I mean, how many of that do we need? I mean, we've got Death Wish. You've got, I mean, the list goes on and on. I mean, Death Wish is the ultimate of them, the original of them, at least for the most part. But I mean, even Die Hard, you got family in danger, and there's just I know I should be better prepared, and there's a whole list of other movies, that, but I can't think of them. But um, to name them, I just know I've seen this particular movie so many times. I mean, and on TV show, 24, the show 24, that there's just, we didn't need that. I understand that, that, and in that sense, I feel like the book would have been better as far as it not being his wife and, and child, and the fact that she was pregnant. Also, like that's a detail that I get is conflicting for him, and obviously it makes it more powerful for him. But again, that's a detail that, I mean, it's not like we would have cared any less about what happens if it was just his wife that died, or if it just his wife had gotten hurt. You know what I mean? Like she didn't even have to die. Like I mean, this whole conceit that that there has to be this extra level of reasoning behind the hero's goal. I guess for some of the things that he does, there has to be that extra level, because he's not playing by the rules, and it's moralistically in the dark. But I mean, I don't feel like killing off the wife really. I mean, either you're willing to go into that gray area or you're not, and the fact of whether his wife gets killed or not, I don't feel like really makes a difference. So again, he goes on revenge, and he's after the people, and of course he's a black ops, and he's a military trained Marine, and SEAL, Navy SEAL, and all this stuff. So, but that's essentially it. I mean, there's not really much more to the movie. The plot is more complicated than necessary, and a lot more simple than you would expect from something like that. In the overall scheme of things, it's I basically explained the plot, and it's simple, and then it's just overcomplicated in reasonings and motivations and all that nonsense that these movies have to have. But honestly, I've never been a big fan of Tom Clancy. The one thing I do like about the movie is it's not as foot stomping, patriotic, flag waving as some of his other stuff. But neither is Jack Ryan. So we've already gotten that transition in the Tom Clancy universe. So this movie doesn't really bring anything new to the table. It's just a rehash of the same old thing, really. As I'm thinking about it, I mean, Patriot Games from '92, almost 30 years ago, told almost the same story, a lot better. And, there was a lot more depth to it. There was a lot more reasoning to it. The family, his wife was in danger, and these people attacked inadvertently, whatever. And so I don't know. They're really and I love Guy Pearce, and I love seeing him in a movie. But when you see him in a movie like this, you know exactly where his character is going to go, and that's all I'll say about that. But anyways, yeah, I mean, I really can't recommend this movie at all. I almost feel like I'm being too nice giving it a 3 out of 5. But I really I attributed that to the acting, especially Michael B. Jordan. in the character. And again, this whole movie is just a setup. That's the worst thing. And I almost again feel worse giving it that much, because I almost want to just hate this movie, because of the way it is so much a setup, and it's so much an origin story with no real reason. We get the origin part of it very early on in this movie. Um, but basically everything important that happens in the last like 5 to 10 minutes, so that we're who this character becomes and who this character is in the novels doesn't happen. So for people who are really wanting to see the character that they love from them, you won't see them in this movie. He is set up to be introduced in the next movie, essentially. And people who've read the books will know what I'm talking about. People who haven't won't care. Either way, I don't recommend this to any of you. Whether you like the books, don't like the books, read the books, haven't read the books. Maybe if you've never seen an action movie, if you've never seen Death Wish or anything like that, maybe you'll enjoy this movie, I suppose. And in a sense, it's a better movie than Death Wish, because that movie was pretty much just that guy's wife gets killed and he goes and kills other people. There's a little more to this than that, but honestly, not much. It's a lot of smoke and mirrors and a lot of noise for the sake of noise. And the action in this movie isn't, it's nothing special, and nothing in this movie short of the acting, especially Michael B. Jordan. Again, I can't give him enough praise, because it's his performance and his charm and just devotion to a character that really makes this, that I was even able to make it through this movie and really stay somewhat involved, is all him. I really liked him. I liked him in this character. I would like to see more of him. I just wish they had dispensed with all this setup, 2 hours of setup, and just had gotten that out of the way. Either assume that we know it, or give us a 10-minute quick spiel at the beginning, and that lets us know who this character was and who he is now, and move on with it, and let's get on with his mission. But sadly, now we've got to wait for another movie that some people might not want to watch after seeing this one, and it's a shame, because again, Michael B. Jordan is great, and I think he could really make this character, bring something to this character. It's just a shame that the makers of this movie didn't allow him to do that. So, anyways, I'm gonna wrap this up. I've talked a lot longer than I had planned to. I'm sure if you've stuck around this long, God bless you. Anyways, so yeah, and long story short, I highly recommend Justice League and the Zack Snyder cut, and Godzilla vs. Kong. Those are very good movies, for different reasons. I don't recommend Mortal Kombat, and very much don't recommend Without Remorse. So I mean, unless you're a huge fan of Mortal Kombat, you'll definitely want to check it out. But short of that, you're not. It's not going to convert anybody. And Without Remorse is going to probably piss off more people that are familiar with the story than not. So, anyway, so that wraps up this extended edition of Matters Movie Musings. Thank you again for joining me. I will definitely keep the next one a lot shorter. Like I said, it's been a while. There's a lot to cover, but I've enjoyed talking to you, and I've enjoyed talking about these movies. And with the summer movie season coming up, I definitely look forward to talking more with them about them with you. So, see you next time.